Our second and third lessons are taken from the Word of the Lord given in the writings of the new church. First, heaven and hell, and then from the Arcana Coelestia. Heaven and Hell 396, from the chapter of Joys in Heaven. All delights flow forth from love. That which a person loves feels to be delightful. No one has any delight from any other source. From this it follows that such as the love is, such is the delight. The delights of the body or of the flesh all flow forth from the love of self and the love of the world. Consequently, they can be lustful and just be pleasurable, while the delights of the soul or spirit flow forth from love to the Lord and love towards the neighbor. Consequently, they are in the affections for what is good and true and provide interior satisfactions. These loves with their delights flow in to people out of heaven from the Lord by an interior way, that is, as it were, from above, and they affect the interiors. Well, the former loves with their delights flow in from the flesh and from the world by an exterior way, that is, from, as it were, beneath, and they affect the exteriors. Therefore, as far as the two loves of heaven are received, love to the Lord and love to the neighbor, and make themselves felt, the interiors of a person which belong to their soul or spirit and which can look to the world heavenly, in a heavenly way, these things are opened. Well, insofar as the two loves of the world are received and make themselves felt, the person's exteriors, which belong to their body or their flesh, they look away from heaven, towards the world, and those loves are opened. So as loves flow in and are received, their delights also flow in. The delights of heaven into the interiors, and the delights of the world into the exteriors. Since all delight, as has just been said, belong to love. The second lesson from the work Arcana Coelestia, number 6478. When an angel does good to anyone, the angel also then communicates to that person his own good, communicates his own good fortune and bliss, and this with the desire to give the other everything and to retain nothing. When a person or an angel has such communication, then good flows into them together with the good fortune and bliss much more than they give. And this with a continual increase. But as soon as the thought occurs that they desire to communicate what they have for the sake of obtaining recompense or to receive this good fortune even more, the bliss and the influx is dissipated. And still more, if any thought comes in of recompense from him to whom they communicate their good. This, Swedenborg says, has been given me to know from much experience. And also, it may be seen that the Lord is in every single thing, for the Lord is such that He wills to give Himself to all, and hence to give good fortune and bliss, and they are increased with those who are images and likenesses of Him. Sharing joy. Jesus said, "This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you." How does it feel when we see somebody else gifted or rewarded? We're told to feel the joy of another as joy in oneself. That is loving. But does it seem fair that people should be equally blessed who have seemingly been less than faithful? The Lord addresses our natural tendency towards indignation with the story of the workers who went into the vineyard. The workers were willingly contracted with the owner for a day's pay, but their cheerfulness turned into grumbling when they saw the same reward given to those who labored less through the course of the day. And even those who only did an hour got paid the same amount. They grumbled, saying, "These last men have worked only for an hour, and you made them equal to us, who have borne the burden of the heat of the day." The story of this landowner owner points out that he had just done what he had agreed to do with those workers. He did them no wrong. "Did you not agree with me for a denarius?" he said. "Is your eye evil because I'm good?" Rather, we may think they had their joy diminished when they saw the benefit given to others. They could have had greater joy. It could have been a different story. The writings mentioned that in the Christian world, there are those who brood smugly about being saved. Quote, "They think much about their salvation and that they alone are saved." They experience pained indignation at the thought that others might also be saved. In fact, they murmur against the idea that the Lord loves everyone. The writings are revolutionary on the subject of salvation and joy and heaven and the world of spirits and hell. The chapter in the work Heaven and Hell, called The Heathen or the Gentiles in Heaven, is the antithesis of a lot of Christian thinking, especially at that time. The Lord's love is, quote, "to will the salvation of all. Therefore, the Lord has provided a religion for everyone." The heathen or Gentiles, those outside the Christian church, equally with Christians, are saved. The writings are so emphatic about the salvation of those outside the church that we actually might even sense some indignation. It's hard work for us, isn't it, to read the teachings of the writings. It's a lot of, and to think, other people get to go to heaven who don't have to struggle through the things that we who are given the teachings of the church need to work through. But there's a joy that belongs to the life of charity to think that anybody, everybody, the Lord wants them in heaven just as much as He wants us. So there's a lovely passage in the Arcana Coelestia 2284 that reads, "It's very common for those who have taken up an opinion respecting any truth of faith to judge of others that they cannot be saved unless those others believe as these people do. A judgment which the Lord forbids," in Matthew chapter 7, verses 1 and 2. On the other hand, Swedenborg says, "I've learned from experience that people of every religion are saved provided that they live by a life of charity and that because they have been given the remains of good and apparent truth. The life of charity consists in thinking kindly about others and in wishing others well and perceiving joy in oneself from the fact that others are saved." So in this 15th chapter of the book of John, the Lord's having a conversation with His disciples on the last night of His life on earth. If they had had any doubt about the Lord's essential message as their teacher, they shouldn't have any after this, the message the Lord gave them then. He was about to demonstrate the extent of His love for them and for all mankind, and to voluntarily accept physical and spiritual torture on the cross. Greater love has no man than this, than a man that lay down his life for his friends. You are my friends. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. When the Lord spoke to his disciples about the love that he wished them to have for one another, he was speaking about the same love which the writings refer to as mutual love. We think about it as charity as well. This love is the source of all happiness. And this love is the basis of angelic existence. And because of that, being the basis of angelic existence and heaven itself, you can bet it is the focal point of the hells attacking us. They want to attack that love, mutual love, the love we have for one another. We're told that love is the very substance of our life. It is the motivator behind everything we do. Thus the writings tell us that love is the life of man. Divine Love and Wisdom 1. Since love is so all spiritually important, it should be no surprise to us that it's often difficult for us to handle love. Most of us know from experience that the issue of giving love to others and receiving love from others can be one of the more difficult tasks of life's work. Not only is it often difficult to show love for others without embarrassment or self-consciousness, it's often even more difficult to allow others to feel love for us. And sometimes it's difficult for us to expose ourselves in letting others know how much we love them. We risk exposure, and it makes us vulnerable. Love is what makes. It's what creates. It is the very being of our life. It is that which we long to receive and daily express, and yet it can sometimes be the thing we fear the most. So what is this mutual love that the Lord invites us to experience with others? It is like the free gift of love which all parents wish to give towards their children. That's one of the first and best illustrations given in the Word about this kind of love. This love is said to be a derivative or an offshoot from conjugal love or married love. Mutual love or unconditional love for children is an offshoot of that love, even though the state of married partners may not be that one of ideal conjugal love. And we're told that the preservation of humanity depends upon people loving their children this way. It's an essential quality of mutual love that can be figured out just by parents and children. There is a kind of love that parents feel towards serving the welfare of their children with no thought of the return to self, or what am I going to get out of it when I raise these children. And most parents know from experience that they would rather be hurt themselves than witness their children suffering or being hurt. Most parents would willingly give up their natural life in order to save their children if they were required to. This is the kind of selfless love that the Lord wishes us to experience for others beyond just our own children, our own family, our own church or community or province or country or continent. It's a mutual and unconditional love the Lord wants us to experience for everyone. So the essential quality of mutual love spoken of in the Word is unconditional love. It contains no thought or expectation of what will be returned to us, our reward, our remuneration. Has no thought that maybe we'll merit something if we do this for others. The Lord's love for us is this unconditional, no matter what kind of love. He does not withhold His love for us depending upon our performance. Likewise, genuine love for others cannot depend upon their performance. And this is especially true between married partners. If love is given as a reward for performance, it is not love. If it is withheld as a means of punishment, it is not love. If it's given with the condition that it must be returned, it is not love. If it's threatened, our loves are threatened because we're brought into a feeling of being unsafe or vulnerable, that's not love. And if it's seen, love is seen as a sign of weakness, it's not love. If it's used to control others, that's not love. So perhaps our greatest barrier to the experience of mutual love is not allowing our love for others to be unconditional. We are so accustomed in this world to operating with others in terms of trade and barter that we can easily slip into the idea that our most valuable possession, our love, is also up for auction to the highest bidder. Our love is so much a part of us that we can innately guard and protect it, and we're continually tempted to bestow it only upon those who we feel we can trust, and often seems the stakes are very high relative to that. And for some, there seems to be a feeling you really can't trust anybody, and you really then can't love anybody. There's also the temptation to feel that a love that goes forth from us and is not returned somehow diminishes us. That part of us is lost. After all I've done for you. But the truth is that a love that goes forth without condition of return is that very activity which conjoins us with the divine being, the divine love. Is it paradoxical? The more you give away, the more you receive? Because our love ought to be similar to the Lord's, the image and likeness of the Lord's love, it must be unconditional. That the Lord may then flow into us more and more. We're continually renewed and refreshed, while if we have conditional love that awaits a return, withdraws, it turns in upon itself, and that love withers. At last, it dies in the ashes of selfishness. For Jesus said, if you love others only for what they can return to you, do not even the tax collectors do the same? On the one hand, we're taught love unconditionally. We are to love our neighbor, do good to them, whether we're privileged or not, to be able to see the sight or to have a sight of what their good is. On the other hand, we're also instructed that we are to show our love to others in ways that are discriminatory. However, we're not to discriminate with the love, but in the acting out or in the operation, in the proceeding of how that love takes effect. So while others are in various states of being the neighbor to us, and we are to love according to those various states, we are never to withhold love from another who has wronged us or who has momentarily slipped from their battle with their own hereditary nature. We caught them. We don't like them now because they're actually human and make a mistake. That's conditional love. We are to continue to wish well to all people regardless of their present condition or their past failures. Jesus said, "You've heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you." We should also remember that we're all too often witnesses to the battles that others have lost in their lives, their ongoing shortcomings. We're seldom privileged to know their victories or their spiritual achievements. So it is that the angels seek to overlook the faults of others. And they can find out in an instant all the past life of anybody that they meet. But they're not interested in flipping through the pages of history to find where this person did this thing wrong or failed their neighbor or sinned against the Lord. They're interested in giving their love that will benefit that person in their present state to continue to open up their hearts to love the Lord as well. Unconditional love. If the love we have and the service we perform for others is conditional, for whatever reason, then it's not actually going to ever feel like genuine love to the other person. It rather feels like manipulation. It feels like we're trying to get what we want from them. In the sphere of manipulation, the hells thrive. Neither the one loving nor the person who is loved are really benefited if there's this control or manipulation going on. Those who feel loved conditionally will begin to know that it makes little difference if they change the disorderly things in their life. Because if such a change is a condition of their love, then they know that that kind of love is fickle. It can't be trusted. It may be withdrawn again if they make another mistake. Conditional love is not worth working for because it becomes too painful. And oftentimes people become retreating and withdraw from all love, to become cold, not willing to risk, knowing that to open up makes one vulnerable to hurt. People then would rather not experience the joy of being loved if there is the possibility that that's going to be withdrawn. So we learn from the Word, the Lord's love for all of mankind is unconditional. Unconditional love is the only kind of love that the Lord is capable of giving. And He knows that unconditional love is the only kind of love that empowers us, people and angels, to work towards better things. He tells us that He will lay down His life for His friends, just as He gave up His natural life for us. And that means that in loving our neighbor, we must be willing to lay down what we want in order to serve what the Lord wants. We can't put aside all of our own aspirations, desires, and wants, our own needs in loving others. But we must be willing to, up to the healthy point of not making ourselves more needy in certain ways. The truth is that conditional love is not really love at all, but simply an appearance of love. It's a kind of love that's incapable of really feeling the joy of another as joy in oneself. And because really that kind of love is self-love and a manipulation of others by means of that kind of love, sadly it can never be fulfilled. The frustration of hell is people are never satisfied. Never satisfied. Always something that they wish they could do and be happier. Because it's all about what I can do to be happier. That's hellish. And the love of heaven is completely different. What can I do to help other people? It's not about me. It's hard to live that life, isn't it? So conditional love can never experience the joy of the growth of another person or the joy of a growth of genuine love in us or between us. When the one we love conditionally begins to fulfill our conditions and expectations, we do not change and take that as a free gift of love. But we see that there's then more to be expected. Oh, if you can set that condition and they're fulfilling it, well, let's make our condition of love even tougher to make us even happier. So, conditional love is a subtle and powerful trap used by the hells to drag us away from pure, warm, the light of unconditional love. Jesus said, "Greater love has no one than this, than to lay down his life for his friends." So the Lord tells us we're no longer his servants, but his friends, because we now know everything that he is doing for us and why he's doing it. The Lord wanted to make it really clear to his disciples, and it becomes even clearer in the teachings of the new church in his second coming. We are not his servants because we do not have to fulfill certain duties to please him in order to be loved by him. We're not his servants that he will praise us and pay us for what we do for him, like a servant. We're his friends. We return his love by giving to others. We find happiness, and in our happiness, the Lord is joyful. But we do not return his love thinking if we do that, he's going to love us even more. Just as we don't shun evils as sins so we can merit heaven. Ah, yes, there is a saying that the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. That kind of fear is the fear of doing things that are going to hurt the Lord's love in ourselves and others. The Lord says he is our true friend. He will stand by us and love us through good times and through bad times. He will not leave us comfortless in times of trouble and distress. And like any friend who observes our pain and suffering, the Lord will suffer with us, is always waiting, patiently waiting for us to return to him for aid. He is our friend, our way, our truth, and our life. And he is all of this for us unconditionally. Amen.